There are words in history that carry a weight far heavier than their letters. They are not merely labels for events, but portals to a different understanding of human nature, power, and pain. One such word is Lingchi. To the Western ear, it's known by a more evocative, chilling phrase, the death by 1,000 cuts. The name itself conjures images of unimaginable agony, a slow, methodical descent into oblivion. It has become a metaphor for any slow and painful process, a series of small torments that lead to a final devastating end. But the metaphor, as powerful as it is, has sanitized the reality. It has smoothed the jagged edges of a practice that was not just about pain, but about terror, humiliation, and the complete annihilation of a person, body, and soul. This was not a back-alley torture conducted in secret. This was a public spectacle, a state-sponsored ritual performed in the open square under the gaze of officials and a captivated, often horrified public. It was the ultimate expression of imperial authority, a punishment reserved for crimes so heinous they were thought to tear at the very fabric of the cosmos. To understand Lingchi is to journey into the heart of Imperial China's legal and philosophical system. It's to confront a logic of cruelty that, while alien to us now, was internally consistent and deeply tied to concepts of social order, cosmic balance, and the afterlife. This is the story of the lingering death, the slow slice, a punishment designed to be the slowest, most agonizing death imaginable. The term Lingchi itself is composed of two characters, Lel, Fei, and Shay. Len can mean to linger or to humiliate, while Shay means slow or late. Together, they form a name that is brutally descriptive, a lingering, slow death. It was a punishment that deliberately prolonged the process of dying, making the journey to death as excruciating as possible. Its purpose was threefold, a trinity of terror that solidified its place as the apex of Chinese penal law. The first purpose was, of course, suffering. Unlike a swift beheading or strangulation, which were common forms of capital punishment, Lingchi was designed to maximize physical agony. The executioner was not just a killer, he was a craftsman of pain, skilled in making incisions that would cause maximum bleeding and shock without killing the victim too quickly. The goal was consciousness. The condemned had to be awake, aware, and alive for as long as possible to experience the full measure of the state's wrath. The second purpose was public humiliation. The execution was a piece of theater performed on a stage for all to see. The victim was stripped naked, their body methodically dismantled in front of friends, family, and strangers. This wasn't just about punishing the individual, it was about shaming their entire lineage in a society built on familial honor and reputation. This public degradation was a profound punishment in itself, a stain that would mark the family for generations. The third, and perhaps most terrifying purpose from a traditional Chinese perspective, was a form of spiritual annihilation. Ancient Chinese beliefs, deeply intertwined with Confucianism and folk religion, held that the body must be whole to transition properly into the afterlife. An intact corpse was essential for ancestral rites and for the spirit to find peace. Lingchi, by its very nature, was an act of dismemberment. The body was not just killed, it was destroyed. The limbs were severed, the flesh stripped away. This meant the victim's spirit was condemned to wander for eternity as a hungry, mutilated ghost, forever denied entry into the ancestral realm. It was a punishment that reached beyond the grave, ensuring damnation in this life and the next. While the chilling reputation of Lingchi is often associated with the later imperial period, its roots stretch back further. The idea of post-mortem mutilation or mutilation as a punishment existed in China for centuries. But Lingchi, as a formalized, legal method of execution, came into its own around the 10th century, during the Liao dynasty, a period of rule by the Khitan people in what is now northern China. However, it was under the great ethnically Han dynasties, the Ming and the Qing, from the 14th century all the way to the dawn of the 20th, that Lingchi became fully codified and reached its most notorious application. The Ming and Qing legal codes were vast, intricate documents that laid out crimes and punishments with meticulous detail. Within this framework, Lingchi was reserved for a special category of offenses known as the 10 Abominations. These were not ordinary crimes. They were acts that threatened the fundamental pillars of the empire, the family, and the state. The most common crime punished by Lingchi was high treason. This included plotting a rebellion against the emperor, conspiring with foreign powers, or attempting to overthrow the dynasty. The emperor was seen as the son of heaven, the linchpin connecting the celestial and terrestrial realms. An act of treason was therefore not just a political crime, but a cosmic one, an act that could bring chaos and disharmony to the entire universe. The punishment had to mirror the crime's magnitude. Another major category was crimes that shattered the Confucian social order, particularly those involving extreme violations of filial piety. Parricide, the killing of one's own parents, was considered one of the most unnatural and horrific acts imaginable. A person who could murder their own mother or father was seen as a monster who had severed the most sacred of human bonds. Similarly, a wife murdering her husband or a servant murdering their master fell into this category of abominable crimes that warranted the slow slice. These acts were a direct assault on the hierarchical structure that, in the Confucian worldview, held society together. So how was this ultimate punishment carried out? The accounts we have from official records, eyewitness reports, and later even photographs paint a grim and methodical picture. The scene was always a public place, typically the busiest market square or a designated execution ground outside the city walls. A large crowd would gather, drawn by a mixture of morbid curiosity, a desire to see justice done, and a potent dose of fear. This was not entertainment, it was a civic lesson written in blood. The condemned would be brought out, often in a wicker basket, and tied securely to a wooden post. In many cases, to prolong the ordeal, the victim would be given doses of opium. This is one of the cruelest ironies of the procedure. The drug was not administered as an act of mercy to dull the pain, but as a stimulant to prevent the victim from fainting from shock or blood loss. It ensured they remained conscious and lucid to experience every moment of their own dismemberment. An official would preside over the execution, reading out the sentence and the list of crimes. Then the executioner would step forward. These were not common soldiers or guards, they were specialists, often from families that had passed down the grim trade for generations. They possessed a precise anatomical knowledge of the human body. Their toolkit was simple, a set of extremely sharp knives of various sizes. The process began. The number of cuts was often stipulated in the official sentence. It could be as few as 8 for a lesser, yet still heinous, crime, or it could be 120, or even more, the infamous.